taste of defeat.
And much later, majority members of parliament seeking the dismissal of Finance Minister Ken Ofori-Atta began to pile a lot more pressure on the president to act on his word. We have details of these stories and a lot more if you stay with us for the next 10 minutes. A pleasure that you could be a part of this morning's bulletin. It's streaming live on Facebook. Our handles 3FM 927. I am Eric Mawina Egbeta. Let's get into the details now. We're starting from the offices of the Ghana National Petroleum Corporation because its board chair and former chair of the New Patriotic Party, Freddie Blaze, says he has done nothing wrong for him to resign over attempt by the GNPC to sell a 50% stake in Jubilee Holdings Limited to Petro SA. The Energy Minister, Dr. Matthew Opoku-Prempeh, has directed the Ghana National Petroleum Corporation to cease any further negotiations with Petro SA in relation to attempt to sell 50% of the country's holdings in Jubilee Oil to the South African firm. Dr. Matthew Opoku-Prempeh says the move is not in the interest of the country as the nation would lose revenue. But speaking in an interview with Accra-based City FM, the board chair of the company says he has done nothing wrong and has been in constant communication with the president over the matter. But according to Dr. Benjamin Boachi, who is the executive director of ASEP, this amounts to grand collusion on the part of the board chair of the GNPC and its CEO.
To a certain collusion at some level within the organization to really undermine the broader, decision of the organization to do this. And it's becoming clear that not the entire board was involved, or not the entire management of GNPC was involved. So that is what I suspect really happened. And even for the board chair to take those decisions without reference to any law that allows him to activate such preemption is a bit weird.
That's the executive director of ASEP, Ben Boachi, and there'll be a lot more on this for you if you stay with us. To some politics now, because the New Patriotic Party's parliamentary candidate for the Kumeu by-election has emerged victorious. NSEAW Nim polled 15,264 votes, representing 70.91% as against his closest contender from the NDC, Kwesi Amankwa. There's more in the wrap from yesterday's event.
It was one of the most anticipated by-election in Ghana's recent election history. The election literally pushed almost all the top brass of the leading political parties in Ghana to the Kumeu constituency to campaign for their candidates. The two independent candidates also ran spirited campaigns. A few hours into the election, controversy over signed pink sheets surfaced.
A lot of activities take place before, during, and after. So he was saying that when he completed his portion, he asked them to put their names there, and the people went beyond and signed.
Security was tight as the Inspector General of Police, Dr. Ekufu Dampare, was on the ground with his men and women.
Returning Officer for Kumeu, I hereby declare you, Ernest Yao Enim of the NPP, as the member of Parliament elect for Kumeu constituency.
A wrap there of events from the Kumeu constituency. Meanwhile, some political analysts have strongly condemned the governing New Patriotic Party's show of force and use of government machinery in the lead up to the elections. Professor Ransford Jampo has been speaking to 3FM.
And when they do, they become overly intransigent about their choice. And so, in my view, the outcome of this particular by-election would have no bearing on what will happen in 2024. People have already voted in their minds and in their hearts towards 2024. They are just waiting. It was an MPP's backyard. They were going to win anyway, even though I will still describe this particular victory that I know would eventually emerge for the MPP as a victory with a taste of defeat, given the kinds of things that they had to do. I mean, in your stronghold, it should have been quote unquote cocoa for you.
That's Professor Ransford Jampo. His position was backed by political analyst with the University of Cape Coast, Jonathan Asante-Ochoa.
There was a need for them to, gather all, marshal all resources available to them. And that is what they have done. But all the same, they didn't have to do that. But it's just unfortunate we've gotten to where we've gotten to. And by election, where it has been taken more or less like a Champions League in your own backyard, is indicative of so many things. One, that the people are disgruntled. Yes. Two, they may not come and vote for the NDC, but they wouldn't come and vote for the MPP either.
That's Jonathan Asante-Ochoa. He is a political science analyst with the University of Cape Coast. We stay on the governing New Patriotic Party because majority members have called for the sacking of Finance Minister. They are this week expected to meet over their demands after the country secured an IMF program. The over 80 NPP MPs say the president must honor his promise to them to relieve the Finance Minister of his position. Here is a News Desk report.
Your time is up. A resurgent call bellowing from the bellies of some of the over 80 New Patriotic Party legislators demanding the sacking of Finance Minister Ken Ofori-Atta. The shock of their news conference for many analysts in October of last year was an ignition of parliamentary force to the executive.
We are by this medium communicating our strong desire that the President change the Minister of Finance and the Minister of State in the Finance Ministry without further delay.
The intervention of Majority Leader Oseche Mensah Bonsu and subsequent meetings with President Akufo-Addo resulted in the buying of time for the man who stands accused of destroying the country's economy. Though delayed, Ghana has received board approval from the International Monetary Fund, with the first tranche of $600 million hitting the accounts of the Bank of Ghana. With that confirmation, the Ken Must Go campaign is back on the front burner. But for spokesperson of the majority group, the onus lies with the president in redeeming his promise to them.
When we get to the point where we would have finished with the IMF, then the onus would be on the president, not on us anymore.
That's the Asante Akim North MP speaking there, and in that News Desk report will end with the Fair Wages and Salaries Commission, because they have justified their decision to block the payment of allowances to some staff of the Ghana Broadcasting Corporation. They're insisting that the over 2 million cedis paid as allowances to staff of the state broadcaster be returned. And management of GBC, they've petitioned the Fair Wages and Salaries Commission not to cease the payment of the allowances until a final determination of the matter. Yesterday, staff of the Ghana Broadcasting Corporation held a news conference where they, amongst many other things, threatened to strike should their May salaries not be reflective of the said allowances. That's our bulletin for this morning. A lot more news for you if you stay with us here on 3FM 92.7. Johnny Hughes, the rest of the Sunrise team, they are up next with the best breakfast show in the capital. Do stay tuned.